live here. Just setting up our meeting. Live here. Oh, okay. And just setting up. I'm going to go ahead and mute that, and we're live.
Great. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order for November 13th, 2024. My name is Zach Hall. I'm the chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. Maybe we can go around real quickly and introduce ourselves. Why don't we start with the commissioners in the room?
I'm Susan Apek. I'm the vice chair. Oh, sorry, you said in the room.
That's okay. Let's go in whatever.
Room. I'm in the Zoom room.
That's good. Yeah.
You're in A room. I'll go. Brian Hart, Commissioner.
Chris Darcy, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
Great. And absent, we've heard today that, and we'll talk more about this, that Eddie has resigned and that Krista is not able to join today. So we also have two guests with us today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, everybody. I'm Keith Staley. I'm the city manager.
Welcome, Keith. Nice to see you.
See you as well.
And I'm Jennifer Keller. I'm with the City of Salem Parks and Rec.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So do we have any public comment today for today's meeting?
No public comment.
Okay. In that case, I move to approve the consent agenda for this meeting and the minutes for the October 9th meeting. Does anyone want to second that?
Second.
All opposed? Hearing none, we'll move we are approved. And we can jump right into discussion items. Keith, as our guest, you have the top billing.
All right. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. So as I said, I'm Keith Staley. I'm the city manager, and one of the dubious responsibilities that I have for the city is to prepare the annual budget. And this year we're only months into our 2025 fiscal year, but we're already starting to think about next year, 2026, our 2026 fiscal year, which starts on July 1st of 2025. Just to make sure everybody's thoroughly confused. And let's go to the next slide. It is not going to be an easy budget process. What we're looking at is a lot of stress in our system. And one of the things that I like to present to or leave with the boards and commissions that I've been talking to is that we're not the only organization that is dealing with these budget challenges. This is not something that is unique to Salem. It's not because we're not a well-managed organization. It's not because we weren't smart enough to see this coming. It's simply a function of our tax system here in the state of Oregon and the cost of doing business. Cost of doing business has exceeded the revenues available. And as you can see here on the slide, there are a number of other organizations within our area are looking at other ways to solve this issue. Both Monmouth and Independence adopted a operations fee this year that was new for them, and Independence had a levy on the ballot last Tuesday that failed pretty spectacularly is probably overstating it, but it failed with a wide margin. Even our friends in Marion County had to raise their public safety fee, which is basically an operations fee for people residing in East Salem. So let's go to the next slide. lots of information on this slide, but the column that I'll point your direction to is FY26. And the red number at the bottom is not a good number, $17.69 million. That's a little bit over 10% of our general fund, and that is the shortfall that we are essentially looking at as we start to plan for our 2026 budget. There's no way to make that up by being more efficient, by doing more with less, by working harder and smarter, and all of those other aphorisms that we like to use. There's really just two levers. We either can increase our revenues, or we'll end up decreasing our expenses to balance that out. I have to submit a balanced budget to City Council. They have to adopt a balanced budget by June 30th of 2025, and there literally is no flexibility there. The budget has to be based on what we consider to be reasonable and likely outcomes for revenue and expenses. This year, we moved up the delivery of our 5-year financial forecast to October. Normally, we don't do that until January. We recognized last year that this year was going to be extremely challenging. So we've upfronted this. We've called the budget committee in. They're actually meeting this evening, starting at 6 o'clock for a second session, where we're going to be talking about priorities and paths forward. But I wanted to spend some time with our boards and commissions, and I'll get to the specific reason for that. But you all are opinion shapers in our community, and I want you to be well informed as you're talking to other people in our community and you're receiving feedback and information from people. I want you to understand where we're starting from. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could say this is how it's going to look when we're all done. I don't. And why don't we go to the next slide? And the next slide. There we go. So over the course of the last year, we've been engaged in this ongoing conversation about our budget. Obviously, last year at this time, the payroll tax failed. Again, that failed. I would put that in the realm of spectacular. 83% of the voters responded no on that question. So that's pretty significant. We learned there that obviously our community wants to be more engaged in this conversation, and we intend to do that. This meeting is part of that conversation. In our 2025 budget, the one that we're in right now, we learned pretty conclusively that every service that the city offers is valued by somebody. We talked about reducing the library, obviously, a lot of concerns and a lot of interest. I probably got 100 emails today in regards to the library and supporting the library. There was concerns about parks and recreation, events, movies in the park, the fountains, many concerns. Ultimately, council chose to put about $1 million out of reserves that were placed into our transient occupancy tax fund to shore that fund up, pulled $1 million of ARPA dollars out of there, and we used them to basically get us one more year and to continue that conversation. That doesn't mean that we didn't make any cuts last year. We cut $4 million out of the budget. Revenue task force, starting in January of this year, we convened the revenue task force. They met between January and July of this year and came forward with a series of recommendations to City Council in July. Council has basically picked those up and is moving those conversations forward. One of the ways that we're moving that conversation forward is we had a community survey done. Basically, we called up 400 likely voters within the community and asked them about their interest in supporting varying services within our community at different funding levels. And we got about 34% of the respondents saying that they would support a levy, and 56% saying that they were not interested, with 40% saying they would vote against a levy. So that's powerful feedback. It tells us a lot about where our community is. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, all of the levies within Marion County and Polk County failed, with the exception of Fall City. Fall City passed a school levy. So, you know, obviously there was a lot going on in this election and a lot of friction. So last thing there on the list, the issue that gained maybe the highest acceptance was a livability levy. Library, Parks and Recreation, 750 plus, at 43%. That's not, you know, that's a whole heck of a lot more than 34% for the other issues. People were very clear that their top concern remains homelessness and public safety, you know, somewhat distantly behind it. So let's go to the next slide, Kathleen. Let's go to the next slide. I think I already covered that. There we go. So when I approach the budget, these are the things that I'm thinking about as I'm gathering information and preparing the budget. First off, as I said, we need to follow the law, which basically says when and how we have to deliver a budget. So pretty straightforward there. Next slide. I try to stay focused on advancing our community's vision, and under the current circumstances, it is really hard for us to initiate any new services. So if we're going to talk about new services, there's got to be trade-offs, or there's got to be new revenue.
What would a new service be? Just
we want to expand our Parks and Recreation facilities to open a new park. We want to have more park rangers.
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. Okay.
But if you can't provide a service at some point, it makes sense to discontinue that service. We have a neighborhood program. It's got one person in it. Going down to a half-time would never make sense to me. So there are lots of, and we in the city of Salem over the last 20 years have been in a constant reduction mode. So oftentimes people say, well, can you just, squeeze a little harder? And the reality is we're really squeezed. When you talk to the police department and fire department, public works, Parks and Recreation, public art, the pressure has already been there. So there's not a lot left to squeeze out. Avoiding using one-time revenues for ongoing expenses. ARPA dollars, we use those pretty wisely. We have completely withdrawn all of our general fund support for homeless response in this budget, in the budget that we're in right now. So the city of Salem is not spending any general fund dollars on direct sheltering or outreach programs. It doesn't mean that responding to homelessness doesn't have an impact on the city budget. Jen would be the first to say, it impacts Parks and Recreation, it impacts police and fire, and many other services, but that direct service, we're no longer doing that. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. We obviously want to be good stewards of our tax dollars, and the couple things that we're doing in that regard are we have a consulting agreement with Moss Adams. They are a organizational development and accountancy. They are doing performance audits in a number of different city departments to focus in on what are the efficiencies and costs that are possible to squeeze out of the city manager's office, our IT function, and urban renewal areas are the three that they're starting with, and then we'll come back and we'll continue to work our way through there. We're also this year doing a validation of our 5-year financial forecast. And by that, our budget team prepares the financial forecast. They pull in information from a whole variety of different sources. They make estimations on revenues and expenses, knowing what our labor contracts are and our likely costs for benefits and all the other information. They gather that all up, they put it together, they prepare a 5-year forecast. We're having an outside accountancy come in and review and validate that our assumptions make sense and that the outcomes that we anticipate in there, the $17.69 million, that's a likely and realistic outcome. 7, we work very hard to take care of our employees. We just signed labor contracts with ASME and our police sergeants union last week. We're continuing to strive to pay our employees at market. That, of course, only continues to increase the pressure on the general fund and throughout the organization. But it only makes sense. We do not want to lose employees to other organizations because we're under market. Next slide. And of course, we want to continue the community conversations, and here we are. So I have been reaching out to all of our boards and commissions, our neighborhood associations, and other community groups just to have the conversation about where we are from a financial perspective. So next slide. And hit that 4 times and it'll give you 4 arrows there. All right. So the city of Gresham this year passed a levy for public safety. And it was the first levy that they have passed maybe ever, certainly in the last 30 years. And they had failed the levy last year in 2023. In November of 2023, they failed the levy. So during the 6 months between 2023 and May of 24, they pulled their community together and said, these are our priorities. And for them, it was public safety. They increased their fire personnel by 13 employees. They added 8 police officers. And they said that they were going to maintain about 30 public safety personnel with their levy. And it passed by 54%, about a 10% increase over what failed. So in talking with them and with our consultant who assisted them in that process, he said that there were 4 key components of their drive to move that forward. And that was their mayor and council were 100% on board and 100% committed. They were willing to go out to the community and make the ask. Their unions, police, fire, and their general unions were on board also. Their boards and commissions and foundations came alongside, and then their community organizations, meaning their home builders association, their chamber of commerce, their realtors, and the like, all came together and said, this is a priority for our community, and without it, we are going to suffer economically and socially. And as a result of that really concentrated effort, they did a ton of outreach. They opened up fire stations, invited people in for conversations, and it passed. And in order for the city to move a revenue measure forward, we are going to have a similar level of commitment. So next slide. If we decide that we want to move forward with some sort of levy, we would need to be making that decision relatively soon, no later than the end of February of 2025. And obviously, the sooner that you can make that sort of decision, the better off you're going to be, because the longer lead time you have, the more opportunities for community engagement you have. And I think the higher the likelihood of success will be. So we'll see, where council decides to go. We're gonna have a new mayor starting on January 13th. We'll have 3 new councilors taking their seats that evening as well. We'll have a vacancy on city council on January 13th, as Councilor Hoy moves into the mayor seat. Ward 6 will be vacant, and that position will be filled by election in May of 25. So we'll have a vacancy there, for almost half a year by the time that election is certified. So we've got a lot in front of us. We've got some really tough questions. And during all of this time period, we will be talking about a budget that we're starting our conversation with a $17 million plus shortfall. So there you are. I'm happy to, I think the next slide is, question, other highlights. I'll skip those.
What's an herb?
Oh, yeah, go back then. I'll just run through these real quick. Other projects and updates, a few things just going on at City Hall you should be aware of. City Hall renovation. We're, as part of the $300 million safety and livability bond that was approved in November of 2022, we are seismically upgrading City Hall. Right now, it is likely to not survive an earthquake. The renovations are primarily focused on ensuring that people are able to exit the building safely and successfully in the event of an earthquake. It will also provide some opportunities for some limited aesthetic and operational improvements, but more or less returning to the same building. The ERP replacement is the Enterprise Resource Planning software. That's our software system that undergirds all of the operations of the city, all of our financial operations, our human resource operations. We are literally down to and are testing 2 potential vendors for that solution. That's a $13 million plus or minus investment. Again, funded through the safety and livability bond. And we'll be looking to install that over the next 18 months. Same with City Hall renovation. That'll kick off next year in March, April, May timeframe, and we'll be out of City Hall for 18 months. EMS transition. City Council has approved the City of Salem getting back into the EMS transport business. We are actively moving forward with that transition. We are literally interviewing 300 people right now and selecting 52 of them for paramedics and EMTs that will deliver the service formerly delivered by Felk. They'll be leaving that business on July 1st and we'll be taking over from them next year. Downtown parking, we are going to pay parking in our downtown. And we will be phasing out the parking tax. Right now, parking's funded through a parking tax. As that fund has declined over time because of some of the large pennies going out of business and others going out of business, that fund is no longer sustainable. We had to find a new model or just get out of the parking business altogether. So there we are. And I really don't have any other news or updates, but I'm happy to respond to whatever questions you might have. You can probably stop the screen share.
When does the parking take place? When does that change? Is that July as well?
We will probably see that in the summer of 2025. We've ordered the equipment and there's a fairly long lead time. So somewhere around July 1st of 2025, maybe August, maybe September, but yeah.
Specifically, how do you see that affecting the Public Art Commission? I know we have our 0.5% for art. You know, when there's a public building that's being built, like the Civic Center, and we have our budget that goes, I think, at this point, mainly for maintenance and fixing and repairs to the public art collection. But is there anything on the chopping block that you can predict or see or that you might recommend?
With a $17 million shortfall, every program will be impacted in some way. I can't say to what extent, but given the magnitude of that, that's 10% of our general fund. So it's no program will be whole in the 2026 budget. Everybody is going to be affected. To what extent, I don't know. It depends. Also, if we pass a revenue measure in May, then maybe we don't have to make cuts, or whatever cuts we do have to make are less severe. A 75 cent per $1,000 of assessed value levy generates about $10 million. A dollar generates $14 million. So if we can get to that $10 to $14 million, I think we can figure out how to balance the budget with that, and keep our system relatively whole. We may have to increase operations fee. We've got new EMS fund coming in on board. There's some franchise fees and some other things that we can look at. There's obviously efficiencies and reductions that we can look at. So all of that together, I think we could find a path forward that was obviously way less impactful than $17 million.
So I have a question, and try to give a short answer. So one of our agenda items today is to look at a plan to spend $50,000 downtown and $30,000 in West Salem on 3 sculptures that are funded by whatever the urban renewal entity is, both in the riverfront downtown and in West Salem. So, I worked in government my entire career. At the same time that the city is having conversations about, we have a systemic problem here and we need to deal with it. How can these other entities have $80,000 that apparently has to be spent quickly on some sculptures? How do they have that? How do they have that kind of surplus? What's the source of that? Are people paying in fees?
Yeah.
That then have to be put out before they expire? Or I've never understood how that works.
So I'm not sure exactly what the source of funds. I'm going to assume that it's urban renewal area dollars, and generally for urban renewal area dollars, there's no need to expend them in a given time frame.
Oh, that's good news for us.
But one of the things that we're looking at, as I said, under the performance auditing, is the urban renewal areas and looking at them. What's the impact of our urban renewals on the general fund? There is an impact. All of the ad valorem taxes within an urban renewal area that are attributable to growth in the tax base from the time the urban renewal area was enacted to present go into the urban renewal area. So that's a substantial amount of money in downtown. It's millions of dollars a year that goes into the urban renewal area, but it's not available to the general fund. But if we said, we want to do away with urban renewal areas, we would only end up receiving into the general fund about 25% of those urban renewal dollars, because they would go back to the other taxing entities, the county and the school district and the soil and water district and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking ahead as people are being polled and surveyed about priorities and what kind of a city do you want to live in. I want to make sure that the Salem Public Art Commission has an answer about why we're making these kinds of investments in our downtown. Hopefully, they are going to add to prosperity, attract new residents, more people will open an office, people want to visit, they're coming for, you know, the Iron Man. I mean, we can message this quite easily, I think, but, you know, like, I do think holistically, you know, it's kind of like, okay, if the left arm is doing this, and where's the rest of the body? You know, and I do think we can be very helpful about facilitating the conversation about like what kind of a city do you want to live in?
Yeah.
You know, where culture is valued and our diversity is valued, and you know, people come to visit us because we have world-class festivals and it's a beautiful place, we make great wine. You know, I mean, I do think it would be great to put together a group of people who agree to kind of be an ambassador type of council to, I don't want to say squelch all the naysayers, but there are plenty of them out there, and I happen to know many of them personally. So does Brian, they live in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a different conversation.
Will you be bringing this presentation to neighborhood associations?
I can, yes.
I would think it would be a good idea to get it out as far as you can, but possibly, I mean, people seem to respond. I mean, I come from a marketing background, and I think we've seen that people are responding when you say you're going to cut hours to the library, you know, when you say you're going to cut hours to Center 50. I think people need real world examples of exactly what they're going to lose. I think your presentation, you know, it shows the big picture. It talks about a lot of things, but I think people need things down to like the basic level of what they will lose. And I
Yeah.
wonder if there could be a presentation or even you know, I'm thinking maybe an art project, you know, that kind of says this is what, you know, maybe with sizes of things. I don't know, a graphic. Some kind of graphic representation of what people are exactly poised to lose, because I don't know if people really understand that.
No, it is hard to understand it, and it's also hard to talk about it without sounding like you're threatening people. And I certainly don't want to come across like that, but as I said, I have to present a balanced budget. So right now, that's why we're having the budget committee meeting this evening, is to talk about what are our priorities going into next year's budget process. And we've asked through this polling and through a survey of the budget committee members and a community survey from last year, we've asked the community, what are your priorities? And ultimately, that's going to get translated into a budget proposal, and then that budget proposal will be very specific. It will be, you know, here is what our community and our organization is going to look like in the absence of, I don't know, you know, $17 million. This is what the police and fire and parks and recreation and library and 750 plus, this is what it looks like. And there will be very specific details about what that is.
Okay.
Well, that can be, you know, I think pretty sobering. I remember when Kitzhaber was governor, there were 5 special sessions of the legislature. Oregon was in a big fiscal crisis. They didn't light the Christmas lights on the Capitol Mall, turned all the fountains off on the Capitol Mall. People noticed, splash pad, you know, stuff that really it's like, well, let's go cool off. Well, no, the water's off. And we might have been in a big drought at the same time. Probably. It was bad, you know, but I do think these kinds of things can either bring people together around finding solutions, or, you know, you kind of get down to a civil war type of thing. And well, you know, the people who we're over here and we're over here, and there's no finding a common ground. And I don't know, this is I've lived here for almost 30 years and this can be a tough town.
Yeah, agree.
So, but I do think it comes down to where do you want to live? You know, do you want a big fence around your park where you go to walk your dog and chat with folks? Or do you want to make sure that the grass is green there and you can have a picnic and your neighbors get together? You know. Anyway, I think your strategy of coming to all the boards and commissions is good. And I would support Susan's, comment about the neighborhood stuff, because there are people who come to the neighborhood meetings who don't go, I don't see them at other things.
Yeah.
It's uber,
Hyperlocal.
close to home, yeah.
And I love the idea about using arts to tell the story. That's fantastic. I love that.
I've got a quick question now. This may be way out of there, but what's happening with the amphitheater? It seems like that's a potential revenue, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but
I'll let you respond to that one.
Do you wanna be specific? Is there a?
well, it seems like it's been there for a couple years there, and I know there's a little bit that I've heard. There's a lot of trying to figure out how to utilize that in an efficient way, and it seems like the city has to manage that with concerts. But I think the original intent was to have it be something like what Bend has, and so I was just curious: is that a potential revenue generator?
Yeah, and it is, it generates revenue now. As far as if you wanna look at the scope of an amphitheater such as one at Bend compared to even just the size of what's built here, there's a huge gap.
Okay.
So it's definitely not the Hayden Homes Amphitheater.
Yeah.
And it never will be. It can't be that for several reasons. Let's just go down to size. Then it's also in a public park, which makes it, there's benefits and there's drawbacks to that. So it's not comparable to an amphitheater such as Hayden Homes or some of these larger ones that can have tens of thousands of people in there. The size alone doesn't allow for that.
Oh.
But it's a great venue and it gets used like every weekend that it's not raining typically. So there is quite a bit of use that happens, and over the years we've attracted more and more of your promoters, if you will, if you're kind of familiar with so more promoters are interested in using it and scheduled to use it in the next summer. So you can you can expect to see more concerts. If you're wanting to see concerts by promoters, you can expect to see that along with a lot of the more community-based events that you would also expect to see at a community amphitheater in a public park. But I would never imagine it to be ran by Live Nation and you have large touring acts coming through there. That's not a realistic expectation for that space. You might be able to get one-offs where you have kind of mid-range artists come through where promoters are willing to do that. And there's a lot that you can go into about the business sides of things, but you wouldn't see it ran like a Hayden Homes Amphitheater.
Okay.
It's one of our most popular venues, though, that we have within our city facilities. It's a huge asset for us and a lot of great events come through there. You can take a look at the website. Once, typically about spring, you'll get to see the lineup, and I really recommend, if you're interested in the amphitheater, showing up to some of those events, whether it's a concert or the theater, the theater events, or lots of festivals, whether it's a food festival or a music festival. Definitely check it out and see what's going on, because it gets quite a bit of activity.
Any other, excuse me, are there more comments and questions on?
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm gonna head back over to City Hall and budget committee meeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
No,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next up in our discussion items is the strategic work plan and strategic visioning documents. I don't know where we stand with that.
Yeah, so if you guys wouldn't mind, this is where I could probably use some help getting caught up to where you guys are at, because it's hard for me to really get a grasp of who, what, where, when, and what's to come. So I think I'll start with the very basics of, we have 2 documents, and I'll ask what they are called.
So Keith was working with us in kind of close partnership and had them in his files and had the names of them. So I guess that was this was a moment where he was pulling up what the documents were and we were working collaboratively with him. So I don't have them on my desktop anymore, I guess is the short answer, because they became living documents inside the.
Okay. Because I have like a strategic positioning and a strategic visioning, and maybe those are interchangeable.
I don't think so. One is a sort of strategic plan and another is a visioning statement that Chris wrote more recently.
And then there's a work plan.
That's
so there's a positioning, a visioning, a work plan. So to me, even starting there, becoming really clear on what the documents are and what they're
I wonder if
called.
maybe this is an offline. Is there a way? Go, Chris, do you have a comment?
Well, why don't you finish that, or maybe I can just make a quick comment.
Sure.
I think the commission started what I would refer to as more of a work plan to look at what's ahead of us. We've got things that require legal opinion, we've got projects, we've got repairs, we want to create relationships with like-minded entities within Salem and the region, in terms of the state, the Willamette, you have, what you have. And then the whole notion of temporary artwork. So when I came back on the SPAC and I said, this is great, we've got there, all of this, yes, needs to happen. However, what I did not see was an overarching vision and something that you could use, have in your toolbox to use in having any kind of a public conversation, like a Rotary speech, like a presentation to the chamber, like, why is public art important for the city to invest in now, given the revenue forecast, stuff like that. So it's more on a policy level rather than we need to do X, Y, and Z in order to achieve that. So that's how I differentiate them. One is more operations oriented, one is more a conversation about why this work is important.
And from a sort of bottom up standpoint, one is formatted as a sort of like task, goal, deliverable, date, responsible kind of strategic plan format, and the other one's formatted as a like Word doc, high level overview, narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as you're looking through files, and I'm looking right now, So Keith was sending around, he had again put them sort of behind the city of Salem's reservoir and was soliciting input, common input from everybody into a shared Google Doc. And so he was controlling the names of the documents and stuff and their final visions or versions rather. So I think that right there is that's your positioning document that Chris wrote and that people gave feedback on. And then next to that somewhere is probably an Excel doc or a Google Doc, Google Sheets doc that is the actual work plan, which was based on a bunch of work we did around what are the things that we think we can accomplish, that we feel like are priorities that we could go out and do over the next, 12 or 24 months. So does that help kind of orient you a little bit?
It does. Where do you guys feel you're at towards completion, towards having these ready and finished?
Can I say something? I've got all these papers in front of me with strategic priority 1 through 5, and then how we combined, Keith, I guess when he left, combined what Chris had done into the kinds of things that we had done before. And there's like way too much language here. And I think it's just a little too much, and I understand why you don't know what to call it or what, where it's going. I think it really deserves a sit down to kind of figure out what it is that we want we simplify it, what we want to say, and maybe just set some really simple goals for next year. Kind of based on that, incorporating what Chris was talking about into our outreach. I mean, I think the things that I felt were most important that we had been talking about was outreach to the community, let people know that we're here, kind of bolster the social media that we've been doing with meeting people face to face to talk to them, exactly what Chris was saying about, and being able to answer the question, why are we spending money for public art downtown when we don't have any money in the budget? That comes with the overall vision of public art. And then we have our, getting those sculptures in downtown. So that's fulfilling getting more art downtown. And we have the mural, simplifying the mural. So maybe if we distill it down to some goals and then those actually correlate with what we've done.
So I think this is going to kind of dovetail with so elections are about to happen, people are changing. We had built up a sort of goal-based approach driven by me to try to let's do some concrete things. And then that is starting to shift toward a more high-level top-down strategic vision driven process. I'm stepping down at the end of this meeting. My chairmanship is over. New elections are coming. So my advice is to open up those documents once the new people are sort of elected and you bring on new commissioners onto this board, sort of think through what pieces of that you want to preserve and what you want to take forward, and then what you sort of don't. Because I'm not sure this group at this time is positioned to reconstruct it as it should be. That's my sort of takeaway. Chris?
I actually, I think the document that is more of I would say the shorter term goals and tasks, I could see that more as a living document. So, and I'm trying to think of, I don't bring a copy of it with me, let's say liaisons stepped forward to be the main contact for, let's say, the state of Oregon or Willamette University or Chemeketa. This thing could be set up as a tracking document. So it would say, okay, the state of Oregon selected X for the renovated exec building downtown. That's going to be another major work of public art. Or Travel Salem decided it was going to do a promotion in its visitor guide around, and they're going to add a page about public art. Okay, check, we've accomplished those things. Or the mural code was revised and passed, check. I think there's a lot of good information there. I wouldn't dump a lot, but I do think focusing on maybe, right, this, we're forecasting this is what's gonna happen in the next 12 months. And it was interesting, as Keith talked about the Civic Center retrofit, you know, in a project that's coming up soon, typically there would be conversation now about what does the public art for that project look like? So it wouldn't be an add-on at the end, it would be an integrated part of the project. Anyway, I mean,
I'm looking, Kathleen, I'm looking right now at Keith's, the last email I have from Keith on April 11th was a link to a city, you know, SPAC strategic plan, but I can't open it.
Okay.
So there's, I guess some of this is us staring at each other. Like,
Yeah.
do you have the document and can you pull it up? Because right now we're just talking about pieces of it from people's different drafts. And so it might be reaching back out to Keith and saying, hey, can we confirm that we have the latest version? That's not it. I can tell you right now. So
This is not it.
I think that's Chris. I think that's what you wrote. Is that correct?
those were my comments that I brought to a meeting after my initial read of the
Oh.
original document.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The one where there was a lot of information there. I could not see the top vision. And even this week, as I looked at the vision for the sculptures downtown, I went back to the city strategic plan. I went back to the downtown development board. I looked for something on the streetscape, and a lot of those just basic, what are we trying to do here? Statements in those documents, but there was nothing there. So
I'm not actually that interested in debating whether we did it right or not. I'm just trying to answer the question for Kathleen, which is like, that was what happened. Like, we developed a work plan that was kind of a more Excel-based steps, and then we switched gears and added in top-down input. And as far as I'm aware, it kind of stalled out at that moment.
Okay.
Because of-
Keith actually did send another document before he left, and it's got this blue, I mean, I have it here. It's got this blue writing. So it has like a paragraph vision, a wide variety of public artworks that actively engage. And I think that was directly from Chris's statement. And then it does kind of qualify, aligned with the vision in the strategic work plan, emphasizing public art as a tool for livability access. So he went through Chris's, yeah, there it is. So that is the latest document that we have.
and this was sent out, correct?
Yes.
Is this what he calls his crosswalk?
Yes.
Okay.
So that, I believe, is the latest thing that we have, you know, and then there is still that work plan that even has people assigned to various things. And Jennifer, you had mentioned when we first brought this up, and I think we were talking about, how do we create a plan for this work, you know, a system for this work plan where we have certain goals that we want and certain tasks that we want to accomplish and getting things done and tracking it. And you were saying that Parks uses some software that we could kind of just lay out things in a really clear manner in terms of the work plan, you know, not so much.
What I was referring to is, so the Salem Parks and Rec Advisory Board adopts an annual work plan every year. So really what it is a spreadsheet that has every month in it. It has a list of things. So whether that's the creation of subcommittees to go out to neighborhood associations and talk about, you know, various aspects of parks and recreation, you know, so there's individuals who are assigned to go to the neighborhood associations. Those individuals are assigned, and then when they're going to go. So in March, you know, this meeting or within this quarter, they're going to hit this many meetings or this many neighborhood associations. It's about subcommittees for example, parks master plans. So we have these master plans that are coming up, who wants to be a participant in that process? And here's when that's going to fall within that year. So it's really kind of a monthly calendar on a spreadsheet that identifies specific kinds of tasks and items that they want to cover and when they want to cover them. So it could be anything from they want to be involved in the capital improvement program and when we're going to have that, come to SPRAB and talk about that as we're doing the budget process. Okay, given the schedule of the budget, we're going to have that come and seek that input in October, for example. They want to do a field, kind of an annual, go out and do park tours, for example. Okay, we're going to do that. And this is the month we're going to do, you know what I mean? Kind of look at that.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
they kind of adopt that each year, knowing that, potentially there may be something that comes up that we have to shift that just by circumstance. But it really kind of helps give them that guide of identifying what exactly do they want to accomplish
Right.
that year, when they want to accomplish it, and then who is going to be involved in that process. So that way it also kind of helps spread, that, so it's not the whole board having to do everything all of the time, kind of thing. Or, some people have particular affinity to being involved in certain things, and some folks don't want to be involved in certain things. So it's really kind of that tool.
Yeah. Right.
And that isn't, for them anyway, that's kind of an effective way to kind of help guide and keep that board kind of on task on what they've kind of like, hey, this is what we've set for ourselves.
Yeah.
So everything from the annual report, that's another thing that's on there, right? Here's the annual report, when we're going to do that, when we're going to bring it back to SPRAB in a draft form, and then when we're going to take it to council. So it's a myriad of different kinds
Yeah.
of things, from projects to kind of, I guess, more policy related kinds of stuff.
Well, I think I agree with Zach that maybe we need to kind of table this for now and kind of put our heads together, and maybe with Kathleen, and kind of go over some things, and maybe we can set up something like that, some kind of a really strategic work plan for the year for 2025 of what we want to accomplish, and then also the set out the vision, kind of the vision plan for going forward, and the kind of things that Chris is talking about. So maybe it's a hybrid of those two types of things. I don't know. I just would like to see things
agree.
happen.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, it seems like this project, if you will, it needs someone to take the reins. And like Zach said, I don't know if this is the time to have somebody own this project, or a subcommittee own this project and get it across the finish line, get it to a finished state, that the rest of the commission can see, how it will be utilized and where it's at. Does anybody here want to volunteer for that? Are you excited to be on a subcommittee, or are you wanting to finish these documents, or feel like you're in the position to take that project on?
I would work with someone on it. I'm not good with spreadsheets at all. So that would not be, I would not do that.
And it's not only an Excel spreadsheet of projects and their state of completion. I would say that's only a small aspect of this larger strategic work plan envisioning documents. I know that it had been talked about, it wanted to be adopted, and getting to the place where these documents can actually be adopted by a commission. At some point, that will need to have some reins. So and we can take it offline, we don't need to have a discussion, I don't need anybody to step up today, but it's either going to need a subcommittee or someone assigned to the project, or it's just going to be removed from the agenda for the foreseeable future, so we don't keep discussing this without the project moving forward or knowing what direction it's supposed to take. So that's what I'm proposing here. And if nobody has anything further to mention here at the commission, we can email me if thoughts come, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, a lot of work went into this already, so I'd hate to see it just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
I think it is important for us to have a document
I-
and a work plan. So
I'll just offer a little, just a little more context, that this came out of a moment when there was a lot of discussion about people on the commission feeling like, how do we become proactive in our activities? So we're not just responding to, a particular request or what should we actually go do? And that's what led to this kind of work plan, was like, we should go do this. We should try to get more murals. We should try to streamline the mural process. It's confusing. And why is it treated differently across all these different surfaces, for example? We should try to go to more neighborhood meetings. We should try, and so it really was not an activity of high level visioning originally. It was a like, what does everyone have the energy and bandwidth and agree as a commission that we should be spending our energy going and doing? We should do more social media, but it was a very tactical kind of idea, right? We're going to go do these things because we can, we have the energy for it. It was not a like, how should public art be viewed by the city? And that wasn't part of it. I think there's energy in the room to add that to it, but that energy is like, it's at a moment of confluence of leadership and changes. And so I don't think it should be abandoned, but I think that spirit of like, what actual tactical things we can write a visioning document. Those documents tend to sit at a high level and inform people who are trying to get educated about the direction of an organization. But what are we actually going to do in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months? That piece was missing. And I think it's sort of reflected in our agenda. Actually, I don't think we did a bad job of going out and trying to really activate some of those things, but that was the purpose of that document and its thinking. And I think this group probably could continue to benefit from that kind of thinking. So that's my only context to add to it. And if the current constitution of the commission, feels differently, then great, and it can rethink how that should be approached. Does that make sense? Yeah. Chris.
I do think it makes sense. But I would also just add to that, maybe as this moves forward, thinking about some desired target dates of completion.
Absolutely.
Because the mural conversation just seems to be going, and it was on the table when I joined SPAC in my first term, and it has still never been resolved.
Well, there's a bunch of, and again, like we're going to dive into minutia without having the plan in front of us, but we wrote a whole matrix of surfaces that could be considered.
Right.
Legal, I think, is looking at it. So we were taking concrete steps towards getting resolution around.
Oh, no, I'm not, that's, my point is, I think once things go over for legal reviews, such as some questions about the murals, such as the question of just acquiring the ownership of the library art collection, which is already in the building and installed, like when things move into that realm, they never seem to come back out. And so I think it'd be good to, as this stuff gets tracked, to say, okay, it's been now many months on that library transfer, which really should be a very simple thing. Where is it? That's just one example. So I'm not.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Somebody actually asked.
Some concrete goals that we can, aspire to accomplish in a year. And, it's all of it is justified in the documents that we've, in this because, and it's all here. It's just kind of a mess, but we know why we're doing it. And, but maybe just setting, 3 or 4 or 5 concrete goals that we can accomplish, or at least get close to accomplishing in 2025, I think would make me feel a lot better. I don't know about everybody else, but just knowing that we will get some things done and we can use a spreadsheet or whatever. And maybe Kathleen, you can help with that and we can kind of, figure it out. And
I'm happy to throw a spreadsheet together, guys.
I'd be willing to help Susan with
Great.
This part of it too.
Great. Yeah, and what I wouldn't want, and so what I'm kind of hearing, again, brand new to this conversation, is I don't want these documents, a strategic work plan, or in strategic visioning, I don't want that to stop progress. I don't want us to say we have to get these documents perfect to revisit a conversation about murals. So I think we can probably simplify, and moving into 2025, there's definitely a way to put it together, a very simple, straightforward work plan with goals for us. So if anybody has any further conversation they'd like to have about this, you can email me directly.
And Brian, you and I can, have some coffee and we'll throw some things around.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Next up, we have the scarves for the temporary installation.
Yes, so that so exciting that that's came together. Hopefully you all saw there was an article and I believe the Salem Reporter. We also had some social media come out from the city. And again, very, very tight timeline. So I didn't know what would happen. And then I took a stab at knitting a scarf, very lumpy one, that I put in the donation bin here, because there's one here, Center for 50, and at the Civic Center and the Customer Service Center. And when I put mine in there, it was the only one. So I was like, oh no. But then later that day, I got an email from the manager of the Customer Service Center, and she's like, just a heads up, our donation bin has filled up several times.
Oh, that's great.
And we're having to put
Oh,
bags
great.
in the back. So that was,
Great.
that absolutely made my day. I was so excited to hear that. And the installation will go up here in the next week or so. We'll see that down at Riverfront, weather permitting. And then it seems to have had some success. Again, it was very short timeline. We just kind of had to make it happen. But I think there's a nice framework for potentially putting a procedure together for how, when somebody comes to SPAC with an idea or a hope for a temporary art installation, for how we may be able to review that as a commission and then go through a permitting process to have them installed in parks, because we have permits to be able to do activities in parks. And also a component of that will also be a review, once permitting is done, a review by parks to make sure that it's aligned there. So we can kind of get the checkbox of that this commission is in favor and in support of this project. Then a permitting process can quickly move forward and then be reviewed by parks. In parks, we can get their approval. So we can have that formalized process and understand what a timeline might be moving forward. And then we'll have all those things in place that I think this is building a nice building blocks for future projects just like it.
Would
thank you.
we need to go to council to, we have Councilor Nishioka's motion to have more public art, temporary public art in Salem. And this is what's happening. And what you're
Yes.
talking about is sort of creating a structure for it, a permitting structure, which to me means a program. And that maybe people should know that they can do this, that if a community wants to get together or artists want to do something, maybe because it's in parks and it can be done as part of parks at this point, we can go to Council Nishioka or council and say, okay, we have a temporary art program now, a structure, a way that people can do it. It has to be in the parks now. Maybe we can work on it so that it doesn't have to always be in a park. But it sounds like because it's happening, we can go back and say, okay, temporary art is happening in Salem.
Yes,
We
yeah,
want more.
I definitely appreciate that. From my understanding, because we have these mechanisms in place, we don't need to go to council, let's say, to review our process. We don't need their approval for that. We can do that internally, and coming to SPAC first for that support of a project, it will also allow for public comment in the time period that we're doing our permitting and receiving feedback from parks. But to speak to, yes, Councilor Nishioka, she did, and council passed that motion, and it seemed like, I'm not super familiar with it, but they're asking for some sort of staff report. And this will I'm imagining I'm going to create a staff report at some point and get that back to council. And this component will be part of it, is that we have found a way to have public art, temporary installations in parks. So I can't give you a timeline for that. I'm still becoming familiar with the motion and what that will look like moving forward, but that staff report that was requested, this would be a component of it.
Because I do, I think we know that some code changes would need to be made if we were doing it not just in parks. So that's a whole nother
Yes.
can of worms.
Yes,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a good update for today. I'm gonna have to leave at 5:30 to go to another meeting today. And it seems like we have a lot of things on the agenda. to
Some
get through.
of these will be very quick.
Okay.
So we'll see if we can go through the next couple very quickly. A lot of them don't really even need much discussion. Just a quick
Thank
update.
you. Thank you, Kathleen and Jennifer, for working with David so much on the SCARF project.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Public Art Directory, Salem Maps Online.
This is just an opportunity for me to ask everyone here if they received that link from Kenneth, I believe was his name, from GIS. You'll want to look for that in your emails if you haven't. At our last meeting, he kind of gave us access to that public art directory, the online version where it was an interactive map.
yes.
He actually sent a link that you'll want to look for. It's called Salem Maps Online. And we can actually now go in there and browse what they've created. And the other component of this is that we wanted that access to be able to do an audit, to be able to look at, okay, what art is in there, what art is not. And as we update all of our data, we'll want that updated in there. So doesn't need to be any more conversation other than if you haven't taken a look, make sure and click that link and go browse around and we can come back and talk about where we want to go from there.
Great, thank you. Annual report progress.
Susan and I have been working.
Did you
Yeah.
want, were you looking at me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Kathleen and I have been working on it. We both came up with kind of outlines, and I am working on the PowerPoint, trying to make it look artful but not too. And I have artworks on each page that sort of fade in, and we're making it kind of concise, and it's basically about what we've done through the year, and looking ahead. And it's got the let's see, it's got the we need to get a really good picture of the yarn bomb project. We've got the utility box, street paintings, looking ahead, social media, library acquisition, the Jefferson mural that we're going to take a look at, the repairs, and then sort of looking to the future. So it's going to be quick, but colorful and exciting, hopefully. And Kathleen is writing it up in very succinct format, bullet points, things that they can scan and browse and see what we've been up to and what we plan to do in the future. So it's coming along. I think we're going to present it sometime in January. Is that I don't think we have a date yet.
That's correct, and we'll bring it to our next Salem Public Art Commission meeting for the commission to look at and approve, and then in January, we will be presenting to council.
And I also, just to mention, I have been going through the artwork, the images that are in the database, and trying to make them look a little more presentable. Some of them are almost impossible to do that, but most of them in Photoshop, I can at least kind of straighten them out and fix the color. Zach, I even sent Bonnie, your mom, I said, is this supposed to be cream color or is it white? And she was like, oh, I think it's supposed to be white. So at least, with artists that are around and I can ask, I will try to do that. But, and her images, they weren't that bad. They weren't as bad, but we definitely need to get a photographer to shoot these things. But I've been actually enjoying doing the Photoshop work. So I'm working my way through.
Thank you for doing that, Susan.
Mhm.
Yes, where are we with the extension of the library art collection? I saw the last minutes that it is illegal. And I saw the communication from the former library director. Where are we? Are we able to close that story?
We're not, yeah, the story's not closed, but there was progress with contact made between the legal department and the Salem Public Library Foundation. I've been told I should expect it any day now, so I'm holding my breath and hope to be able next meeting to report some major progress.
Great, thank you. Bloomberg asphalt grant.
Another really quick update, because we nearly closed the conversation at our last meeting on this, where it seemed like we were going to pause for this year. That we didn't have the capacity to really meet what we understood to be the goals of the project. That the scope was beyond what we were able to meet. I did give everyone the materials for the project. I shared that after the last meeting. So you all have that. We're realistically, for this year, if we were to submit, we could only resubmit what we have. And I think last meeting, we kind of moved past that idea. But Susan emailed me with wanting to potentially start a conversation of, would we want to look at 2026? And if that is something we're interested in, starting now and potentially forming a subcommittee of people who are interested in being champions of this project to get it to the scope that we believe Bloomberg would like to be at.
I think that if you look at the review criteria, which I did, and you look at what the city needs to have in place and the relationships that it has to have in place with the arts community and the greater community, that will take some working on in order to be competitive in this national funding pool. That would be a good thing for a subcommittee to look at, because they're very clear. You know, this isn't a plop down one time. There needs to be an issue that this project is getting its arms around that involves the broader community, that and I think just being deliberate about that would put us in a more competitive position.
So unless anybody has any other ideas, what I'm thinking is, it sounds like we're pretty committed to at least putting a spreadsheet of projects together for 2025. This is one of the projects that I think can be on the spreadsheet, and once we get all of our projects outlined, we can decide how far up it should go based on our capacity and people's ability to and interest in championing it.
And we will have a couple of new commissioners as well who might be able to get interested in something like that.
If everyone should read those guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some interest in getting, possibly being in that subcommittee, but I wanna look at what you said first in the guidelines and things like that.
Okay.
But I have initial interest for sure.
Great. And I'm thinking maybe we should, just for sake of time, maybe what we should do is move new business before the subcommittee reports and art collection maintenance. What do you guys think?
I think the art pedestal conversation has to happen today.
Okay.
Because Keith said, actually, I should ask Jennifer. One of the questions that came up at our last meeting was whether the money has to be spent and the sculptures that will be acquired through this urban renewal, downtown development district, whatever the correct name is, whether that has to be fully completed by June 30th, 2025, or whether, as Keith suggested, that money isn't going to go away June 30th, 2025.
So after the last meeting, I did reach out to on the urban renewable funds. I did not think it needed to be spent by June 30th. I reached out to them and have confirmed it does not, that money can be carried over. So I think that is great. It gives us more time to be thoughtful in the RFP that's put together. And it's, we're not trying to meet a deadline to get everything kind of wham bam in place. We can be thoughtful in that process. So as we proceed along into this fiscal year, so about the fourth quarter, which is kind of the last 3 months of the fiscal year, we'll reach out to them and have them carry that money over so that it's identified in the 25-26 budget. So any money that hasn't been spent at that point will be carried over for available use in 25-26.
Great, thank you for following up on that.
And what I would suggest though is that we don't let this project rest.
No.
Just because it takes so long to do this process. And it is, it's not something they're going to want to roll over every year. It takes quite a bit of work to roll it over the next fiscal year. So we're going to want to keep this ball rolling and make as much progress as we can.
That can be up high on our spreadsheet list.
Yes.
Right, so could I ask that I did draft something,
Yes.
and based on all the information that has come through this body to date. So the feedback from downtown, the direction from downtown, the direction from West Salem. And I sent a document to Kathleen and I highlighted the areas where it would be great to have some consideration by this group, because that would help just shaping this moving forward. And I'm sorry, my own schedule has been so busy that I was not able to send it to her until this afternoon.
And is it this one, the edited vision outline Salem?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and I would have brought copies, but I ran out of printer ink. So let me just preface this by saying it's a great opportunity. I will say, I do think the downtown sites are somewhat limited. There's more room for breathing in the West Salem site. The big question is the city, through this body, interested in commissioning new work? Or is this a process for acquiring existing sculptures? The budget is fairly, I would say it's quite low for acquiring the quality of work that I think these sites deserve. But could you just go back up to the top? And I'm having a hard time reading the size of the font. Okay, so we've already resolved the question, the money can be carried over. The other big question is, and we don't have to resolve all of these today, a commission or buying existing work. Also, is this open to all artists? Is this limited by geography? That's another question. The budgets are set. Let's go down to the next one. I just want you to think about this stuff. There must be some standards that Public Works has set for works in these sidewalks adjacent to roadways, et cetera. We should probably clarify what those are. And then I pulled some some values from what the two entities sent to us. I also looked at the city's vision. So they cite the capital city, a thriving economy. I believe that both of the sites in the downtown area are within the historic district. I looked at the boundary for that. So, you know, that could be something people could look at, you know, what other things happened there? What's the history of the area, other businesses? I put in a comment, if you could scroll back farther a little bit, about the fact that the city of Salem is located on the traditional lands of the Kayapouya. That could also be a reference. There, some time ago, there was the possibility of having a piece coming from an artist within the Grand Ron tribe that would be sited kind of near the Peter Courtney Bridge. I'm not sure that was ever funded, and so that never moved forward. The fact that there could be a piece by a native artist in one of these sites, I think would be important to at least suggest. And then I wanted to call out kind of what the purpose of the streetscape improvements was. I mean, I think that, you know, there's some bioswale space, trees with more life, things like that. But I think Susan and I did go to the 2 downtown sites on Monday because Krista was out of town. And they're very busy, but you know, I think if this could get fleshed out in the next few weeks so that it could go through whatever process the city needs, then we could put it out on the street for artists. Having worked in government, I know that there are public procurement channels. There are also some focused public art channels that really are the industry standard now. So making sure that this gets put out through all of those channels.
Chris, now that we have a little more wiggle room on this, it doesn't feel quite so pants on fire. Maybe you and I and Krista can get together and look at what you've put together and kind of talk amongst ourselves about how we feel about these various things, and then bring it to the commission and say, this is what we recommend, and what do you think? So, but I think that's a really good start, what you've done, and I'm really excited. I think just going down there, even though it was pouring rain, and we went and we looked at the sites and kind of, you know, just felt what the space felt like. We went into the Firestone place, and Chris has the information to contact the manager there, and you know, I think we're moving, at least moving along with it, and it just, I'm really glad we have more time though, because I think there are a lot of questions that we need to answer amongst ourselves, and then how we present it and move forward. And I think it's again going to be on that work plan, and it will get done.
Great. Yeah, I would suggest the subcommittee coming together, reviewing this, getting a clear vision on what you would suggest, and bringing that back to the commission.
Great.
I think we could do that for the December meeting.
So yeah, Kathleen, in the interest of time, I agree. I think maybe we should jot down a new business and action items, and if something has to fall to next week, it can be the maintenance updates. So
Great.
Salem Kaiser together sign replacement collaboration motion.
Yes, did you guys get that attachment to the agenda?
Was there that photo of the kind of stick thing? Is that what we're talking about? Wasn't there a photo?
No.
Was there a photo of the actual sign?
Yeah,
and I'm a little confused as to, there was another sign that was a Salem sign that the neighborhood associations were getting together to fix. Oh, that's the one. Yeah.
This is the sign,
Okay,
Salem
that's the
Kaiser
one.
together. This is the sign that
Okay.
this is when you're leaving Kaiser driving to Salem.
Okay.
This sign has been causing problems for years and years, and is a huge burden for this city to keep up. So the motion was to remove this sign. I believe it's been removed. And if not, the majority of it, you would actually see it cleaned up. I believe the timeline is by the end of this week. And so the motion was to remove the sign, get something that is more sustainable financially for the city and easier for Public Works to replace. And so here, Public Works has a sign shop. They have a number of signs that they can do and they can make and they can replace at a very economic price. So that was the original motion, and then Councilor Nishioka amended the motion to just receive some sort of support from the Salem Public Art Commission while they're thinking through how this might move forward. I have been able to speak with some of the staff here who work in Public Works, and they will, in the new year, they'll be ready to advise us on our options and what the possible signage, what are materials that they have on hand that they can use, and then what will our options be and how can we advise them and provide feedback on making it something that is artful and beautiful to look at. And I can't make any promises because they don't have the machines yet, but they have some pretty cool sign machines that they're hoping to acquire that would that we could do some really neat stuff in collaboration with them. So probably January, maybe February meeting, we'll have someone from Public Works come and tell us about the capabilities, the materials, and then where we can add our thumbprint, if you will.
So do we have to take some action here? Or?
Nope, that's just under new business. No action is needed. Just make sure that you read those motions, become familiar with it, and then be expecting January, February. We'll hear from Public Works and we'll move forward with that.
Thank you, Kathleen. So the next two, which bridge two different line items, I guess, are probably somewhat related. So what time do commissioners want to have their meetings, and who are the new commissioners, and who's going to step into the different leadership positions? I don't have a position on either of those things, so I will sort of step out of that conversation, but do you want to talk about that now and resolve that now? Do we want to have elections, I guess, now? Are there new incoming commissioners who have been identified and are scheduled to join the commission?
They have not been identified yet. I know that they have some, they've received several applications, and that it's sitting with the mayor to kind of make those additions.
I can't remember the schedule for when that boards and commission committee meets. Is it quarterly, monthly?
I believe it's monthly, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that.
Okay.
YouTube transcript, strike that, no.
But does the mayor, is the mayor, has she received a recommendation from that committee that she will take action on? Or is it still in the mixture?
I think it's still in the mixture. I don't believe it's been finalized yet.
And it's still he, right? It's still the mayor that we
Yes.
have.
Chris Hoy.
Oh, Chris Hoy.
Right. So he will make appointments before he leaves?
I believe so. That's
Okay.
how I currently understand it.
So the committee has made the recommendations for two. Did they know that we have two vacancies?
I think it's still in progress because I've received emails about updates. I've received an email of this person has been appointed, and I said that person can't be appointed because they don't have any experience. And they said, never mind, back to the drawing board. At the same time, I let them know that Eddie was also stepping down. So I imagine that they're going to be looking at appointing two people. Whether that has to happen at a meeting, I'm not sure. But they have the information that they'll need, and I imagine we'll hear back very shortly.
Okay. I guess the question would be, should we be letting our contacts know that these two positions are available if they are still available, and that we would encourage people to apply.
I think that's always, that's always an opportunity. I mean,
But
it
if
seems
the
like
decision's already been made, I mean, yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
we should be promoting the fact that
Yes.
SPAC is one of many volunteer opportunities for the city.
Absolutely.
And I remember I went to the volunteer event this year and I forget who someone received an award and he said, well, thank you. And I suggest that everybody do something.
Our very own Brian Hart received an award.
Oh, no, yay.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Right?
Hey,
So I
Brian.
guess,
It was a good event and the cupcakes were really delicious.
so it sounds like there will be some new members coming. We're not quite sure when. So with the current existing membership, I'm stepping down as chair. My term is over. So do folks want to elect? Does anyone want to serve as the chair moving forward in this room? Willing to put their hat in the ring for that? Susan's currently the vice chair. So I'm just introducing that as a topic. Is that what we mean by elections? I think that's what we mean.
Yes.
Is there a process that we're going to go through here, or are we is it just kind of informal? Because I think I had already put my hat in the ring. I had let Kathleen know that I would be
Great.
interested in taking over as the chair.
Yeah,
So-
Kathleen, is there a process that we should follow?
And I also wanted to nominate Chris to be the vice chair.
So you have to make, I'm sorry, I'll interject. You have to make formal, it has to be, you have to make formal motions.
Mhm.
And then it has to be voted on, by the commission. So you have to formally take action not to. So someone is going to have to nominate, or you can nominate yourself. Somebody's going to have to second for you. You can either do it together or separately with regard to taking on chair and then vice chair, but you have to formalize it by making motions and adopting those motions.
Well, I move to nominate Susan Napak as the chair of the Salem Public Art Commission.
I'll second that.
Oh, yep.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of Susan as the chair of the Salem Public Art Commission?
I
Okay, and I
You
nominate.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I can't go.
Just to clarify, no, I know everybody said, it sounded like everybody said aye, but you need to ask if anybody opposes, just in case somebody maybe
Got it.
didn't say aye, just to make sure it's formal. Sorry.
I did that right the first time. All opposed? All right, hearing nothing, Susan is the new chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. Congratulations. Susan, you were about to make a motion.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to nominate Chris Darcy as the vice chair of the Salem Public Art Commission.
Second that.
All opposed? Hearing none, Chris Darcy is the vice chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. Congratulations. And now, if you want to change the monthly SPAC meeting time, new chair and vice chair, you have that opportunity.
I have a question. If it's just going to be 4 of us at the next meeting, is that a quorum? I mean, what's the
It is 407.
Mhm.
4? Okay.
I think that if new appointments will be made by Mayor Hoy before the end of the year, then I think we should wait for a discussion about altering the meeting time. I think that would just be fair
Yeah.
and welcoming rather than not. I don't know,
Yeah, I like that.
Just getting taking the temperature of the room, though. How do people feel about this timing that are present?
This timing is a little bit challenging for me, but I've been making it work, but it just means extended time off of work.
What would make it easier?
I mean, a perfect scenario for me would be like somewhere in the lunch hour, so I can kind of combine it, and I'm only losing a little bit of time off.
I like that.
Yeah,
Lunch hour.
But again, I think we should just
Wait.
in fairness, I think it
Yeah.
would be better to engage the new folks.
Sure. Agreed.
Just for sake of interest, Spencer, would you be open and available for a lunchtime?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to
Spencer,
know.
would you be able to attend any of the meetings if we did it at
Potentially.
Okay. Good to know.
Sorry, maybe in the interest of time, does everyone agree that we should maybe postpone discussion of the maintenance until the next meeting? I know Chris needs to go to the meeting in 15 minutes, so maybe this is kind of winding down.
Unless there's anything of like urgency or something else was damaged. I mean, it seems like progress is happening.
Progress is happening. I think really exciting that we did, Lee has obtained the contract to actually fix the black discs and do those repairs. Hopefully, they'll be completed by the end of January. So that's
Good.
huge progress. That one's a big
Yay.
check off the
Okay.
list.
I would just like to just say personally to everybody, thank you for the last few years. It's been really a pleasure of mine to work with you all and to serve on the Salem Public Art Commission. So thanks for the opportunity. And do other folks have other things they want to talk about this evening, or should we adjourn the meeting?
Did you need to, Kathleen, talk about any of those other maintenance issues? Anything that we need to know about now, or can those all be put off till the next meeting?
They can all be put off. There's a picture of the mural that was completed. Just enjoy that. Another thing checked off the list there. And then just for more good, feel good, quick turnover, the heron sculpture sign, there's a photo of that I included. It was probably vandalized, it was knocked over, and that's already been taken. It's in repair, it's being repaired by facilities, and it should be installed really quickly. So these are all good maintenance things. Nothing to report on Chemeketa. We can save that conversation for the Chemeketa Parkade mural. We can save that conversation for another meeting.
Okay.
I did notice that I happened to park by the side of the convention center on Commercial. And so I looked at some of the labels for the sculptures there. And they've not weathered, they've not stood up to the weather at all. I'll send you some photographs.
Okay.
In fact, there's one piece there, and someone who knew the artist said the name for the sculpture that was removed previously was still on the label.
Oh,
Anyway, the weather has just made them illegible.
okay.
Yeah.
Just one other thing, we noticed when Chris and I were walking around and we went over to the cube in front of Ritter's, it is very tipsy. I don't know, Chris, if you've had time to.
I didn't have time
about
to
it. It's
Okay.
not secure at all.
at all. Like
Okay.
we were
Good to
looking
know.
at the grill work, for the pedestal below, and I pushed on, I didn't push hard, and the thing moved, and then I pushed harder and we grabbed it, so it came back. Anyway,
That's a really
Yeah,
good.
it's really a safety hazard at this point. It's
I
think it should
wondered
be a
actually,
priority.
I wondered after we left whether the piece, whether someone rotated it and got it loose.
Unscrewed it.
I don't know, but it's
Okay.
Unscrewed.
it should get looked at right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely have that on my list.
And it's lighter than you'd think, it's hollow,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't take much to push it over, like I could do it without effort. Well, I just wanna say, Zach, thank you for being the fearless leader and for bringing your policy and organizational skills to the table and your knowledge of the field. And, now you're part of the distinguished alumni of this body, so you'll be called upon I'm sure in short order.
Yeah, feel free to
And
reach
if
out.
we, yeah, if we have any questions about the history of certain artworks, and since you've, been really intimately aware of a lot of art going on in Salem for a long time, I'm sure if you don't mind, we'll come to you with questions. Hey there.
Thank you,
I
Zach.
would love
Vivian.
The time that my time is up.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
No, okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I guess we're adjourned.
I guess we're adjourned.
All
Meeting
right,
is
happy
adjourned.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Just a point of procedure. So if Zach has stepped down now rather than at the end of I think his end of his tenure would have been end of December, or was it end of November?
It was the end of December and it seemed like he was stepping down as chair now. I'll loop back around and clarify with him.
Okay, because I think that's what he was saying, intending, I gathered. So does that mean that my tenure would start at the next meeting, or are we not gonna have a chair for a month?
So your tenure doesn't start until, I mean, he's still technically the chair, but as vice chair, you would run the meeting and I get you're going to be the new chair. So from that, but from a technical standpoint, you would
Yeah.
run the meeting as the vice chair, just as if he
Okay.
wasn't like last meeting, he didn't attend the meeting, right? You ran it. It would be
Right.
similar in nature. So technically you and Chris don't take effect until January, until the end.
Okay.
So you are, approved for those roles, but technically they don't take effect until January for you in those new roles.
Thanks for clarifying that,
Mhm.
Jennifer. Okay, well, as the vice chair, I say meeting adjourned.
All right,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Yeah.
great day.